Hi guys, my name is Jay and I'm an ESL instructor and curriculum developer at University of California, Irvine. I have been teaching English for about 10 years and 3 years I spent teaching English in Kazakhstan and a little bit over 7 years I've been teaching here in California. I actually do love teaching test prep classes, guys, even though a lot of students don't like them, but I find this experience to be rewarding for me as a teacher because it's a very goal-oriented task to pass a test and get a band scores that you want to in order to enroll to college or university, or sometimes even to move to a different country to live. So I hope with my knowledge and experience I have helping many students to pass this test that you'll find it useful for you as well. And just don't forget to pause, take notes, and practice as much as possible before taking your test. And I hope you really do enjoy the content that we are created for you. Enjoy the course, stay engaged, and don't forget to take the notes and practice. Have fun, guys, with preparing for the IELTS exam. Hi guys, and welcome back to the IELTS course. In today's lesson, we'll learn about new part of the IELTS exam, and we'll learn about listening module. I will give you a brief overview to the IELTS listening module and things you need to know, but we'll specifically focus on sections 1 and 2 and how to complete these two sections successfully. And now we are going to review our IELTS listening module. Before we start learning different strategies and tips, I would like to give you a brief overview to the listening section. In the IELTS exam, you'll have 4 sections and 40 total questions. You'll be given 30 minutes to listen to the recordings and take notes and answer the questions. And last 10 minutes, you'll be given to transfer your answers to your answer sheet. In the IELTS test, you'll see 4 different sections, and in section 1 is going to be a conversation within a social situation. Your section 2 is going to be about a monologue on a general subject. Section 3 is going to be about a conversation between up to 4 people with an educational or training context. And the last section of the test is a section 4, which is a monologue, lecture, or academic talk. Most of the time, section 3 and 4 are the most difficult ones for the students. So you have to really try to do your best when you're completing sections 1 and 2. Also, you'll see different types of tasks in your IELTS listening test, such as note completion, gap fill, short answer, table completion, multiple choice. Most of the time it has 3 different options, A, B, C, but sometimes you might see A, B, C, D as well. Also, you might have tasks such as sentence completion and labeling a diagram. Again, in listening test, you will have 4 sections, 40 total questions, and 40 minutes to complete this entire task. And here I'm going to explain what type of task you are going to have in each section and what kind of strategies we are going to learn. For example, during our course, we are going to learn general strategies for listening for words and listening for numbers. And we'll also learn specific strategies for each section. For example, in section 1, which is about conversation, we are going to learn how to complete a form, complete a table, choose answers from a list. In the section 2, which is going to be about a talk, we are going to learn how to complete sentences, label a diagram, plan or map, and also give a short answer. In our section 3, it's going to be about discussion. We are going to review how to choose answers from a multiple choices, label a diagram, and match words and phrases. And our final section 4 is going to be about a talk or lecture. And here I'm going to explain how to classify words or statements, complete notes, and complete a flowchart. And now we are going to review our first strategy of the listening test, which is a general strategy, and it's going to be about listening for words. Remember, when you are listening to different recordings in the IELTS test, you have to use the questions you have on your handout to focus your attention on the keywords as you listen. Remember, the most important part here is also to circle the keywords. And the most important tip is for you to remember that keywords are often stressed and you need to listen for words that are stressed. And as you know, stress words always sound a little bit louder than the rest of the words. So here we have an example about a similar task. So here we have a following question. Choose two things that are included in the price of the hotel room. So in this case, the word two is emphasized. So you have 5 different options, A, B, C, D, and E. So from A, B, C, D, and E, 5 options, you have to pick only 2 things. So please pay attention when you are listening and circle the keywords such as this one. So your keyword in this question would be two and included in the hotel room. So make sure you're listening carefully and always circling the keywords. It will help you to stay focused. Our next general strategy is listening for numbers. Our strategy for this task is to be familiar with different ways to express numbers. Remember that taking notes is very important, and whenever you hear a number, make sure to do that. Also keep in mind that when we have a long number, the intonation rises and then falls at the last number. Whether the number is an identification number, a date, or a price, there are different ways the number can be said. Look at our following example about dates. As you can see, November 24th, 2013 can be said in 2 different ways, as November 24th, 2013, or it can be said as November 24, 2013. And now we're going to review how to say price, time, decimals, telephone numbers, credit card numbers, and ID numbers in different ways. So as you see on the slide, we have price 1333, and it can be said differently. So you have to be aware of that, and you have to be able to recognize that number. So as you see, it can be said as the following: $13.33, or the speaker can say 1333. Next one, we have time, which is 2:45. So the first example we have is at 2:45. It can be also said as 2:45 or 2:45. So next one we have, it's a decimals. So for example, when we have decimals, we can say it a little bit differently. So you have to make sure you know how to recognize this number. So for example, here we have 3.75. Also, we can say it as a 3 3/4, or we can also say it as 3 3/4. And the last one we have, it's about telephone numbers, credit card numbers, and ID numbers. So here, for example, you have a number, and this number can be said as the following: +150575 3948, or we can say it as +1505 475 3948. So you have to make sure before you take your IELTS test, you are aware of the numbers and how they can be said differently. Strategies for the section 1. As you remember, our section 1 is going to be about conversations. And the first task we are going to review is completing a form. The most important thing to remember when you're completing a form is paying attention to the words before and after the gap. Make sure to listen for the name and address which appear before the gap. So for example, here we have an example below with a name and address. As you see, we have a name, Juan, Gap, and John's. So in this case, as you can tell, we have to listen for the first name of John's. So for example, when you hear first name and then it will be followed by John's, you know that's information you need to write down. The next example we have address 154, 2, and Gap. So whenever you hear 154, the following information you're going to write down in your gap. And remember that the order of the gaps in the form will follow the conversation. And now we're going to review how to complete a table in the section 1. Remember, before you listen, you need to circle the keywords around the gaps, and then you need to listen to the conversation and complete the form below. In the IELTS exam, you'll be asked to write no more than 3 words and or a number for each answer. So this is your task, to read carefully and identify how many words you are allowed to write down. So as you see, we have a table below, and you have a title that states the following: Sandington Hotel reservation form. You are given 5 numbers which are followed by the gaps that you have to fill out. For example, as you see, before number 1 you have 2 words, guest name, and then you have a gap and Wiggins. Wiggins, it's a last name, and when you are listening to your recording, you have to write down and identify what kind of first name goes before this last name. The second one is already done for you. For example, you have arrival date, then June 23rd. And the next one, it's number 2, you have to fill out is length of stay. So length of stay represents number. So you have to listen carefully for how many days a person who is trying to reserve a room is trying to stay there. Maybe it's 3 days, maybe it can be 5 days, 10 days. So you have to listen and identify this number. Then we have room type. So room type, it's like logically you can ask yourself, what kind of room types do hotels have? So think about that and be prepared to listen for this type of information. The next one we have, it's a room preferences. Room preferences, so here you have to be very careful because you have number 4 gap, but then you have also the word view. So that has to be word before the word view that you have to write down, and it has to make sense when you write this word down, and it has to be grammatically correct as well. So be very careful when you're listening for this information. And the last point we have, it's number 5, which is going to be credit card number. As you remember, we discussed previously about the numbers and different ways we can say the numbers. So you have to make sure you know all the different ways how numbers can be said, and you are listening carefully for these numbers. Important tips here to remember are not to write 4 words, because here in the IELTS test you are being asked to write only 3 words. You have to make sure you are using your pencil, then circling the keywords and reading and predicting what you are going to hear in your recordings. And now we're going to review how to complete a table in the listening test. The most important strategy here to keep in mind is circling the keywords and paraphrasing them. Also, you have to make sure when you are taking your notes, you write them down in a column for each speaker. This will help you to stay focused and not get confused. Also remember, paraphrasing will focus your attention on the subject of the conversation. Remember also that speakers might not use the exact same words in the conversation, so you should be able to hear some different words that have the same meaning. And as you see, we have an example here, and you have a question that states the following: which 2 activities is the guest interested in? And we have a list A through E, and we have a paraphrase words that you might hear in the listening recording. So for example, you have A, water sports. You might have a list A, water sports, but the speaker in the listening might say something like swimming, boating, water skiing. Also, you might have something like hikes, but the speaker might not mention the word hikes, but say walks and climbing. So you have to make sure you know how to hear these words with different words. And when you are given 30 seconds to prepare before listening, that's the thing you have to do. You have to try to paraphrase the answer choices you have and be ready to hear these ideas with different words.